The Devil's Advocates radio show is broadcast under a time brokerage agreement between Devil Radio and Civic Media, Inc. Some portions of this program may be pre-recorded. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Civic Media Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
And now, here's your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, thank God it's Friday, the January 6th Eve edition.
Happy Friday. I am great, man. Great to be with you. Thank you, Nate, working the board, doing the sound. Big, busy day today. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Dominic, in this world, as far as I'm concerned, there's only two lines you cannot cross. One, being an insurrectionist. And if you hadn't noticed, that's why we stopped having U.S. Senator Ron Johnson on the show. Hell, Governor Tony Evers got in on the act. We'll tell you what Evers had to say about Rojo's co-conspiracy and the whole J6 insurrection. Two lines you cannot cross, Tom. Insurrection.
And what's the other one?
Nickelback. And I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to Nate.
What, man?
You're on the wrong side of Nickelback history, man.
Oh, I've
Both
seen
you
Nickelback in concert. They're fine, man. It's easy 3-chord rock, man. I was entertained. Nickelback, they get a bad rap on this whole thing, man. It's like when Beavis and Butthead, the kids started wearing the Winger shirt, and then there goes Winger's career.
Are you not entertained?
I am totally
this
entertained.
Will be an entertaining show, we hope. We got fine guests, including former Dane County Sheriff Dave Mahoney, right here in the WMDX 92.7 FM studios. And in the Happier Happy Hour, former U.S. Attorney, host of the Morning Cannoli, Jim Santel, our good friend. He joins at 5 o'clock. And the topic today, a lot of it will be the January 6th, Dom, and the President of the United States. That's the Joe Biden, just in case.
Are you sure? Just for the megas out there,
Biden.
It is Joe Biden. President Joe Biden. Say it with me,
I feel
mega.
confident that he was legitimately elected President of the United States, Joe Biden. He went to Valley Forge, my understanding, and he was powerful today, and we want to play the sound. This is your lead, folks. So tune in right now. Turn up the radios. Grab the grandkids. Tell them to listen. Uncle Joe's about to speak with some gravitas. Play it for the people. Which one are we starting on, Dom?
Let's do cut number 3. Joe Biden today. What this election? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start with the January 6th topics. Cut number 1. Joe Biden today. President Biden referencing democracy.
Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I mean it.
I hate when the president says, I mean it. And I mean it when I say that.
President Joe Biden. Yes, that's a great question. I wonder how Mega would answer that. Cut number 2. Let's hear what the president says about January 6th, please, Nate.
Today, we gather in a new year, some 246 years later, just one day before January 6th. A date forever shared in our memory because it was on that day that we nearly lost America. Lost it all.
Now we're going to jump ahead here. More from President Biden today. The topic of most of this speech, January 6th, and he was speaking, my understanding, from Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Play it for the people, cut 6.
For the first time in our history, insurrectionists had come to stop the peaceful transfer of power in America. First time. Smashing windows, shattering doors, attacking the police. Outside, gallows were erected as the MAGA crowd chanted, hang Mike Pence.
Hey,
Yeesh.
Mike Pence.
I remember that.
I remember well, Dom. More from President Biden. What are we up to? Cut 7? The Trump lies.
Jill and I attended the funeral of police officers who died as a result of the events of that day. Because of Donald Trump's lies, they died because these lies brought a mob to Washington.
But he said peaceful. Be peaceful.
Oh, that one time.
The
So it's
disclaimer
fine.
right at the end. So
Yeah, man. It doesn't matter. He said peaceful. Anything else doesn't matter. It's like, disclosure on the front of his financial statements. Hey, don't believe anything in here. Doesn't matter. But let's hear more from the current president, Joe Biden. The violence is not acceptable. Cut 8, please.
I'll say what Donald Trump won't. Political violence is never, ever acceptable in the United States political system. Never, never, never. It has no place in a democracy. None.
pretty sad that the president has to stand up publicly and make a statement like that. Because he's talking to between a third and a half of the nation right about now, the Trump supportive. More President Joe Biden, Trump is trying to steal cut number 9.
In trying to rewrite the facts of January 6th, Trump is trying to steal history the same way he tried to steal the election. But we knew the truth because we saw it with our own eyes. This wasn't like something, a story being told. It was on television repeatedly. We saw it with our own eyes.
We saw it with our own eyes. You heard it with your own ears if you tuned into the Devil's Advocates that day. Cut number 10.
Then, as usual, he left the dirty work to others. He retreated to the White House. As America was attacked from within, Donald Trump watched on TV in the private small dining room off the Oval Office. The entire nation watched in horror. The whole world watched in disbelief. And Trump did nothing.
Trump did nothing for over 3 hours.
President Joe Biden today, Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Cut number 11, more of Joe Biden.
Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. He's being straightforward. He's not hiding the ball.
Oh, no.
No. Oh, he's very, very
Dictator
candid. For a
on
day.
day one.
Just one day. We'll see what happens after that.
I think that's where Joe Biden sort of steps off here. We've got one more from Biden in Valley Forge, January 6th, and his potential opponent, Donald Trump. Much of the topic of this speech today, play cut 12. Please, Nate.
He proudly posts on social media the words that best describe his 2024 campaign, quote, revenge, quote, power, and quote, dictatorship.
Revenge, power, dictatorship. What a platform for democracy.
It's a mega platform, man. It's not about democracy. It's not about governance. It's not about America. It's about Donald Trump and Donald Trump's ego.
And Dominic, since we have been on the air, and this is brand new breaking news, the U.S. Supreme Court apparently, and sorry if we've been momentarily distracted, it's because our phones are lighting up with the news. The U.S. Supreme Court will take up the Colorado ballot, what would you call it, the removal from the omission of Donald Trump from the ballot in Colorado. U.S. Supreme Court to hear this case in February, my understanding.
February 8th, the court's ordered oral arguments for February 8th.
So coming up pretty quick. I also understand here in the state of Wisconsin, our buddy, the brewmaster, has filed a lawsuit to try and prevent Trump from being on the ballot here. Today, it's a Friday, Dom. We air the grievances, and we've got a fine crew coming in here today. And, it is rare that we quote the grievances of Governor Tony Evers. Don't make enough time for Tony's grievances around here sometimes, Dom. But Tony had a lot of them. Tony spilt. He spilt on a few different topics today. One, he is not supportive of the Kirk Bangstad, the Minocqua Brewing Company lawsuit that would look to roll back school choice vouchers. Tony is not supportive of that lawsuit. That was made public today. Tony Evers also spoke to the topic of legalized marijuana and the possible Republican medical marijuana deal that they're going to put forth here in the new year.
Come on.
And Tony
medical.
might be on board. We'll hold that one down because we've got our friend Alan Robinson from the Herbal Aspect. He'll talk on that topic. But what about Rojo, Dom? What did Tony Evers, what did my buddy Tony have to say about the U.S. Senator from the great state of Wisconsin?
Molly Beck reporting today at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers wants U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and a group of Republicans who posed as electors in 2020 to pay a price for their ties to former President Donald Trump's failed scheme to stay in power. In an interview with the Journal-Sentinel, Evers said the Republicans should face penalties that could include charges, fines, or losing their jobs for participating in a plan to sign paperwork falsely claiming to be electors for Trump after he lost the re-election and trying to hand those documents to then Vice President Mike Pence on January 6th. Quote, here's what Evers said about Johnson, Ron Johnson, Senator Johnson. He was part of the deal. Something should happen to him. He knew. Why in the world would a U.S. Senator involve himself with something that is patently against the law? He said he did not
Trump's
think
lawyers asked, Dom.
because they asked. He did not think the actions warranted jail time. Evers over the summer said he thought the 10 Wisconsin Republicans who posed as electors should face charges, but his recent comments marked the first time a high-ranking Wisconsin official has said Johnson should be punished for his role in the scheme as well. Johnson coordinated with Jim Trupis, remember that guy, Crute, who represented Trump in Wisconsin during the 2020 election to get the false election paperwork to Pence on January 6, hours before the Capitol, was sacked. Ken Cheesebro, an attorney for Trump, designed the false elector plot. We know all of this. Johnson dismissed criticism, says his involvement lasted only a few seconds. We know that story as well. On Friday, Johnson accused Evers of spreading dangerous disinformation in order to divide and mislead the American and public people and attack the media for reporting the comments. Johnson said, everything that I have said about this non-event has proven to be true. Evers on Wednesday said Johnson should be held accountable. Quote, he's got to pay a price. I'm not sure what that price would be. He's got to pay a price, Crute. Johnson apparently not very happy about it.
I'm also looking for a pound of flesh, if you know what I'm saying. Rocking out the Nickelback here. No, I got a grievance. Folks, we got some fine guests. First, our friend Alan Robinson, fine sponsor with the Herbal Aspect. We'll find out what Tony's new marijuana policy might be. And also, retired Dane County Sheriff Dave Mahoney, friend of ours, he's in the lobby. They'll both be next, sequentially. More Devils.
Do you have questions about whether legal cannabis is right for you? I'm Alan Robinson, co-founder of Herbal Aspect. Cannabis is my business, my vocation, and my passion. Schedule an in-person or virtual cannabis consultation with me. A $50 value at no cost, just for Devil Radio listeners. Receive personalized advice, benefit from my undivided attention, and I'll guide you through helping you make an informed choice among Herbal Aspect's extensive selection. And get 10% off your first purchase when you use the code Devil Radio at herbalaspect.com.
Hi, I'm Mike Crute, and I've signed my share of commercial real estate leases. In Madison, I highly recommend Jeff Jansen from Altus Commercial Real Estate. Jeff guided me to my first radio station location on the west side. He helped us move to University Ave, and eventually Jeff set up the lease at the Civic Media World headquarters. No one works harder to provide options in commercial leasing. Call Jeff Jansen and his team at Altus Commercial Real Estate at 608-338-1101.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Be sure to do yourself a favor. Check out the Civic Media app. Go to your favorite app store. Download the Civic Media app. Take the Devil's Advocates with you everywhere you go.
Dominic, I've been joined right here in the WMDX 92.7 FM studios by our friend, a fine sponsor from Herbal Aspect. He's Alan Robinson. He gives us the 420 facts on the Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, Alan.
I got
Hey,
the
Alan.
facts for you today, baby.
Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year to
Yeah,
you.
thank you, man.
Do we
I'm
still
feeling
say
happy.
that? Do we still say that on the 5th?
We're still in the first week.
Yeah,
next
it's
week
okay.
it's
Next week
it's
it's
a
too
little
late.
long in the tooth.
Well, all right. So I personally quit saying it on the 3rd,
You're a better man than I.
but I like to get to it. Like, that's just me, and which is why I was so happy when you reminded me that it was Friday and that I have hopes to
Should I have
dash.
to remind you it's Friday?
God, I
But
can't wait
please
till
continue.
Friday.
Yeah, well, when you sell cannabis, every day is Friday. That said, I've got hopes to dash today, baby. Go on and ask me some questions about these people.
Alan Robinson, let me ask you. You bring us the 420 facts from
Yes, sir.
our fine sponsor, partner, Herbal Aspect.
Yes, sir.
Tony Evers quoted in the paper today talking about the Republican medical marijuana proposal.
Sure.
And the part I know is they don't want you smoking it. So they've already lost me right there. But tell me, Alan, what is your opinion of this proposition and why would Evers support it?
So, first off, Tony said that he could sign a bill, right?
If there weren't too
If
many
there
poison
weren't too many
pills.
poison pills, right? And I could support a medical bill, right? Because I know the importance of medical cannabis. I could, right? It wouldn't matter who put it forward. Here's the crux. And words matter, right? There won't be a bill that doesn't have all the poison pills in it. Not from the GOP. They're incapable of producing good legislation. Nobody has seen this bill. They've done it in secret. They've done it without any expert. They've done it in a partisan way. I don't know anybody who's consulted on the bill.
Have you been consulted on the bill, Alan?
Man, come on, man. I
Robin
asked,
Voss isn't
I
calling
asked-
you?
man.
But we do know certain things that Republicans have said publicly.
They know me. I will say this: they know me. I know that they know me, and they know that I've been a wealth of information. Hey, I'm available. And no, my phone has not rang, but neither has Senator Agard's. She was right there in the office with them. Neither has Greta. Like, come on, man. If they're not calling their colleagues, they're not calling anybody outside the building. So I don't believe that a bill put forward by the GOP is going to be viable.
Well, and perhaps not in good faith, we're speaking with Alan Robinson, our good friend from Herbal Aspect, one of the fine sponsors of the Devil's Advocates radio show. I'm not clear that anything put forth is in good faith. And certainly I think there are medical rationales for the use of cannabis. I'm more of a freedom guy. I think we should be able to use it for any reason we want to as adults. But here's the point. If you can't smoke it, that's the way many people would choose to ingest it, the flower. I understand many of these are just going to be cannabinoid synthetics, which I don't want to take. I don't want synthetic cannabinoids. That's counterintuitive to why I find cannabis appealing in the first place. It's organic, right?
Right.
If it's real.
So what Robin, first off,
Yes.
but Robin's audacity is what I find to be the best, right? Because the fact of the matter is Robin's not a doctor. Who is Robin is neither a doctor nor a cannabinoid specialist.
Well, he sets abortion policy, Medicaid policy, marijuana policy. He's got an impact.
I mean, the cojones on this little gentleman. Like, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, how do you have the audacity to propose policy and to propose medical, to propose different diagnoses which could be suitable for a cannabis program, right? When you don't know either about medicine or cannabis. I just don't understand how he has the audacity to do so in secret.
I don't mean to get the memory wrong because I'm also a fan of the cannabis. But if I recall, wasn't there a proposition put forth by one of Robin Voss's constituents that would have allowed cannabinoids for the treatment of epileptic? incidents. And it's my thought that that young lady passed away.
Yeah.
Am I right on any of that? I'm usually pretty close, but I don't want to
You
get
are
it wrong.
right. Robin's dereliction of his duty to his constituents is deep and tragic, which is why this stunt is all the more appalling. And when I said that I was coming down here to dash hopes quickly, I just wanted to make sure that we understood that any bill that they put forward is just going to be a political stunt, so that Tony is basically saying, well, bring something forward then. Put something forward that I can sign. I dare you. They're not going to. They don't know how. They haven't talked to anybody to know how. So they're literally building in the dark. Okay. That's
You
fine.
are harshing my buzz a little.
Good. Because the bottom line is that you should feel played with by these Republicans. You should feel toyed with, because that's all that they're doing. I promise they're not going to put, to say that I am skeptical would be putting it there.
Color you skeptical. He's our friend Alan Robinson from the Herbal Aspect, a fine sponsor of the Devil's Advocates. Dom, I better let you in here.
Yeah, man, come on, you're killing my buzz here. Let's talk about Herbal Aspects. What do you got? You got any inventory left over after the new year, Alan? What's going on?
Jesus, cheese and rice, boy. They ate us out of house and home. I've got a new shipment of edibles coming in. They should be here either tomorrow or Monday.
You got a routing number, man? Can you assure me? Because weed guys have been telling me it's going to be here tomorrow for years.
Well, here's the thing, right? So, Herbal Aspect, my birthday is on the old 11th, right?
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, so I've got exotic flower coming in this weekend. I've got a huge shipment of edibles coming in. I am getting ready for a bonanza sale. I like to sell a lot of weed on my birthday.
Excellent.
Right. So I bring in a large inventory right after the new year, and then I get it cracking. So that's what we're going to do. Stick around, be on the Herbal Aspect mailing list, and you can get up with the special.
Still doing the consults, the free consults for the Devil Radio listeners.
You definitely got that right, man. $49.99 value all the way for free. Devil Radio code.
Herbalaspect.com.
That's at herbalaspect.com. Or you can sign up for the mailing letter, or you can just stop and see us at one of our 3 locations, 3547 University Avenue, 2017 Winnebago Street, or right next to Dunkin' Donuts on Gammon Road.
That's how you find it. Follow your belly to Dunkin'. Herbal Aspect, a fine sponsor of the Devil's Advocates radio show. He's Alan Robinson, our friend, bringing us the 420 facts each Friday. Thank you, Alan. Coming up next, former Dane County Sheriff Dave Mahoney talking J6. More Devils. Happy Friday.
.7 WMDX.
Civic Media News. I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Governor Evers says he does not support efforts to keep Donald Trump off of the presidential primary ballot in Wisconsin. The Democratic governor tells the Journal-Sentinel that doing that would only anger the Republicans' base and justify Trump's claims the deck is stacked against him. 41 public schools in Milwaukee are tearing up playground asphalt and replacing it with trees and native plants. Kids get some relief on hot days.
There's often not very many areas of shade, if any, on these urban schoolyards. There's not a lot of things to naturally do.
Lisa Neeb is with Reflow, the nonprofit which is helping with the project. She says grades go up and behavior problems go down when kids have recess in more natural settings. I'm Terry Bell, Civic Media News. Here's what you need to know closer to home.
For WMDX News, I'm Nate Weggehout. Collegiate women's softball is coming to Madison. The Madison Mallards announced yesterday that a new team with the Northwoods League softball will start playing games this summer. They'll be playing at the Duck Pond on the north side, the same field as the Mallards. The field will be getting some upgrades to accommodate the fast pitch softball team. They're holding a contest for the public to name the new team. The 4-team league is intended to develop players for college, Olympic, and future professional play and are currently looking for players across the entire country. SSM Health customers may have had their personal information leaked due to a potential data breach. The breach occurred in July last year and possibly exposed people's names, birth dates, and health insurance policy numbers. Social Security numbers were not accessed in the breach. SSM Health customers are being offered a year of free credit monitoring. And that's what you need to know. I'm Nate Wuggehout, WMDX News.
Our pets are like family to us. That's why Dr. Mike Cohn and his trusty assistant, Daisy the dog, of Veterinary Clinic are here with over 42 years of experience. Ensure your pet's health with proper rabies vaccinations, reliable heartworm protection, and proper yearly checkups. Call 608-255-1239. That's 608-255-1239. Veterinary Clinic in Medicine. Open from 7:30 to 2 Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 on Saturdays. For a lifetime of wagging tails and joyful meows, visit Veterinary Clinic in Madison.
The Bucks win in San Antonio. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. It was close, but the Bucks pulled off a 125-121 win over the Spurs. Giannis on facing Victor Wembanyama for the first time.
He's unbelievable talent. Can score at will anytime he wants. Plays the right way, plays to win. It was great playing against him.
Spurs head coach Greg Popovich on how the game ended.
What I wanted was a different call on the last play where Giannis got a three-point play. But sometimes the calls go for you, sometimes they go against you, and you got to live with it.
College hoops, number 21 ranked Wisconsin Badgers host the Nebraska Cornhuskers tomorrow, 1:15 at the Kohl Center. NFL,
Test 1 2, test 1 2. I'm not too loud in your ears, am I?
Nope.
All right, and can you just talk into the mic for a sec just so I can see your levels?
Sure. Dave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Do you hear me, Dave? You can't get too close to that thing, but your mouth's got to point at it. It's directional. So if you want to turn, just pull that mic with you, or just, you know what I mean? Just
I do. Yep.
Find your way around it.
Yeah, and the levels are looking good, so we should be set. Do you have any walk-on music? Any music you want to hear for the going in and out of the segment there?
Oh, whatever works for you guys.
You like Guns N' Roses, Dave?
Yeah, just as long as you don't play I Shot the Sheriff.
We had joked. That had been bantered a little bit, but we had already decided that would not be the tune.
Got about 1 minute.
Friends before they happen. And now, the United States Postal Service can give your business a new advantage. Introducing USPS Ground Advantage. Reliable and affordable 2 to 5 day package shipping. It's the advantage you need at the price you want. Get the Ground Advantage at USPS.com/advantage. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America.
Your home for the Devil's Advocates with Dom and Crute. Weekday afternoons from 4 until 6.
I like your stories and your reporting. Great show.
Mad Radio 92.7.
Charged, never convicted. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's the Friday edition, our favorite day of the year. Well, at least
yes, so far. That's an accurate statement, right?
Best day of the year so far, and it's getting better right now. I got a fine guest who's joined me here in the WMDX 92.7 FM studios. It is former Dane County Sheriff and friend of ours, Dave Mahoney. Dave, how you been, sir?
Very good, Mike. And Dom, it's good to join you again on the Devil's Advocate. It's
Well,
been too long.
We're going to talk January 6th, Dave, but before we do, there was talk about legalized marijuana today with the governor, and once upon a time, we kind of put you on the spot, Dave. Have your attitudes changed at all on legalized marijuana, or where do you stand in 2024?
In 2024, I stand in the same position I did before. I support legalization of medicinal marijuana under the care of a physician. 2 years ago, I sat and watched my mom die a painful death. And maybe that could have helped her. And it could have helped many other people today who are suffering from severe pain and other outcomes from significant diseases. And for that reason, I support the legalization of medicinal. But I'm just can't get over and get to the point of legalization of recreational marijuana.
Well, I'm sorry for the loss of your mom, and today is not the day where I'm going to try to change your mind, Sheriff. Today I want to talk to you about an op-ed that you drafted and had published at the Journal-Sentinel, and the conversation was, about January 6th, and I've got a few thoughts myself, but Dave, I want to hear your thoughts. Why is this day? 3 years later, it's January 6th again. Why have you come out of retirement? Why are you writing op-eds about this specific date in history, sir?
Well, even though I retired as Dane County Sheriff, I have not, vacated myself from democracy and ensuring our constitutional rights. For 41 years, I fought to ensure our rights, whether it was at Act 10 at the Capitol, whether it was just before my retirement when we reviewed the death of Floyd in Minneapolis, ensuring the rights of all individuals. And tomorrow, the third anniversary of January 6th and the last anniversary before the 2024 election, our democracy is still under attack, the same as it was 3 years ago. And all citizens need to pay attention and be engaged and ensure that their rights are upheld. And in all honesty, make sure that we don't elect a president that's going to demonize democracy and move our country back to a state it's never been in. And so I'm staying involved at the national level, the local level, the state level, and speaking out on our constitutional rights and our rights to vote.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I've got former Dane County Sheriff Dave Mahoney with me here in Madison. January 6th, it was a violent act. It seemed obvious to anyone that witnessed it. But the perception now has changed. And Republicans now have the perception, well, maybe it wasn't all that violent. And certainly you can't hold Trump accountable for that. But so many, especially on right-wing talk radio and Fox News, they pointed to all the Black Lives Matter protests that happened that summer. And they try to say these are analogous in some way. And not enough of the Black Lives Matter protesters went to jail, or they pretend like there were no prosecutions associated with even what happened here on State Street in Madison, Dave. So want to get your opinion. How do you set aside the false analogies, Dave, and get people to talk seriously about what happened that day?
Well, we need to go to a grassroots campaign to educate the public on the importance of exercising their right to vote. That right is threatened. And in many ways, the far right would be very happy to take the rights of U.S. citizens away from them and not allow them to vote, not exercise their rights. There's another talk show host on the other side of town who today was talking about that very thing. And, and what they say, you keep your friends close.
Yeah.
And, I listen on a regular basis because I want to know what we as citizens are up against. And, I never lose sight of the fact that our own citizens, police officers, members of the military, common citizens who came to Washington at the call of their president to try to overturn a legitimate and fair election. They were domestic terrorists on our own homeland. And every one of us as citizens need to be engaged and involved to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Now, I'm not saying you have to vote one way or another. I want everyone to vote for their candidate and let the votes fall where they may. But I believe that we as citizens have earned a right, and we must exercise that right to vote, and never let it be under attack again.
Dave Mahoney, former Dane County Sheriff here in Madison, Wisconsin. You were in law enforcement 41 years, I believe, Dave, and you talk about our competition, let's call them, across the airwaves, across the dial on Righty Whitey Talk Radio. And for so many years, they claimed the mantle of patriotism and, Blue Lives Matter and the blue line. And as someone in law enforcement, Dave, the attacks in so many cases, it wasn't just against property, it was against humans. It was against cops, Capitol Police officers. Dave, how do you think they reconcile that? What's your opinion of those that, would want it both ways?
Well, the very people who held up their right to enter the Capitol illegally and to attack and in some cases kill a law enforcement officer, there were blue line flags flying at the Capitol that day when they attacked our Capitol and attacked the men and women of law enforcement and dragged some of them out of the Capitol, trying to disarm them, some calling for their being shot. Their job was to protect the Constitution and to protect their rights, to exercise their rights, to assemble, to air their grievances, and their right to vote, not to overturn a legitimate and fair election. Well, once the FBI started interviewing those individuals who had been caught on tape, they sucked their thumb and grabbed their comfy blanket in hopes that their president would clear the slate. Well, that's not happening, and every one of us as citizens shouldn't allow that to happen. There's consequences to your actions. And on that particular day, they tried to overthrow a fair and legitimate vote. If they didn't like the outcome 4 years later, they have a right to vote and elect whoever they may wish. And I stand in support of that right, but I don't stand in support of trying to degrade our electoral process, to threaten voters, to keep legitimate voters from the voting sites, to scare the heck out of election workers who really are the blood and soul of our electoral process. They're the ones staffing our voting sites. But when they are threatened, their lives are threatened, they're marched on their homes, who would blame them from not getting involved? So not only ensuring that every one of us who has a right to vote exercises that vote, we need to hold our elected federal officials' feet to the fire. We have one great senator in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin. Senator Baldwin.
That was pretty clear. You meant Tammy.
And, she's working extremely hard on two bills: the Freedom to Vote Act, to prevent partisan interference in our elections, for fair maps, something very near and dear to Wisconsinites, absentee voting rights, and post-election audits. Every one of us wants a legitimate vote and electoral process. I'm all for auditing the process, and if something's broken, let's fix it. And the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that ensures the rights of our minority population to be able to vote. And Tammy's working extremely hard on both of those bills and is an ardent supporter and will continue to be a strong voice in both of those acts.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. That is former Dane County Sheriff Dave Mahoney. Dave, thank you for joining us. As as a guy who has over 40 years of law enforcement, and when you look back and reflect on January 6th, and we were on the radio that day, we were watching it and listening to it live and reporting on it live, and the act of the president, or the lack of action for the president, for 3 hours while the mob that he summoned to the Capitol was set loose on law enforcement. One of the things that always got to me was, where was the cavalry, Dave? You know what I mean? I mean, if you saw something like that as sheriff in here in the state of Wisconsin, and a mob was attacking the Capitol, I mean, how would you react as a law enforcement officer, even though maybe you didn't get an order to do something? That really still kind of stuns me, Dave. What was your take on that when you saw that?
Well, you know, you guys understand exactly what that's like, because I hearken back to Act 10. There wasn't an assault on the Capitol. There were some who wanted the community to perceive it was an attack on our state capitol. In fact, my role was to ensure individuals' rights to assemble and air their grievances, which they did very peacefully and without injuries to law enforcement or to participants. And I think we were a model. Wisconsin was a model, not only on how law enforcement should allow freedom of speech and the right to assemble, but what we saw 3 years ago and what we potentially could see in the future if we are not paying attention and not involved. We could have a replay of January 6th, 2021. And I'm very concerned about that, because right now some voters are scared to go to the voting places, and every one of us needs to stand strong as an American, show up at the voting place and vote for our candidate of choice.
As a law enforcement officer, Dave, if you were there, what would you have done? How do you, it just still stuns me that the cavalry did not arrive. There was the National Guard wasn't called, random people. I mean, this is the capital of the United States. And the Capitol Police were left to themselves to defend it with no other support for hours and hours and hours, Dave. It's hard for me to get. I'm not in law enforcement, Dave. I'm trying to get you to react to that very specific lack of help for those Capitol.
There was clearly a lack of help, and I wasn't there. But had I been, I'd have been calling for the cavalry to show up and to assist. One, to uphold the rights of people who were there, and two, to protect our Constitution.
Former Dane County Sheriff David Mahoney, friend of ours. Dave, don't be a stranger, man.
Yeah, Mike, I look forward to it, and Dom, look forward to the next time.
Real quick, final thoughts here. Do you think there should be prosecutions of Ron Johnson, of the fake electors, of those others that participated in Wisconsin?
Absolutely. One of them was on that other show today.
Dave Mahoney, thank you so much for joining us. I do also like to keep my friends close and my enemies closer. That's why I do a show with Dom every day. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. You can be a part. Even you, CJ. 844-967-2789.
Thank you, Dave.
.7 WMDX.
Partner now with the greatest radio show ever and start getting return on your investment immediately. The Devil's Advocates are a small business just like you, and like you, we can't afford advertising that offers no return. The Devil's Advocates listeners support our sponsors and the mission. Tell you when your messages are working and put cash in your register. So invest your ad dollars to reach our raving Madison and Dane County fans, or affordably reach the whole state, Chicago, Minneapolis, and our nationwide stream audience today. The Devil's Advocates can be the voice of your business, hold special events at your location, interview your staff for satisfied customers to lift your business. Contact us today, Crute at darnwi.com. That's Crute at darnwi.com.
The fastest hour in radio, serving truth, justice, and equality with every slice. Outside the Pizza Box with Pizza Box Mike. Friday nights at 7 on the talk you can't ignore. Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX. You're listening to Mad Radio.
60% of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Happy Friday to us all. You can always join us on the lines. Air your grievances. Give us your take at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, never a bad day when we got friends coming by like former Dane County Sheriff David Mahoney. Thank you, Sheriff Mahoney. And let's not forget our fine sponsor and friend, Alan Robinson, with the Friday 420 Facts. Thank you to Alan as well, especially for the financial support, Alan. Oh, Dom, coming up soon, it will be a happier happy hour. And James Hentel, former U.S. Attorney, the host of the Morning Cannolis, 9 to 11 a.m. right here on the Civic Media. Jim's joining us soon. But right now, if you got some grievances, you better air them. 844-967-2789. Before we go to the phones, though, Dom, any grievances?
No, man.
Other than just a general surliness. I mean, I'm a little surly because you guys played Nickelback on me, but please continue.
Man, it's so far, it's good. I mean, the Supreme Court, it's not a grievance. This is new news. They're going to take up Trump's Colorado ballot ban in a historic case, apparently February 8th, Crute. That's 4 weeks from today. The Supreme Court has scheduled oral arguments 4 weeks from today. That's not a grievance, man. I'm really happy about that.
And Dominic, I was encouraged by the strong words, and we played many of them, from the current president, Joe Biden. Went to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, a historic place, and called out the former president, Donald Trump, this wannabe dictator from day one. And tomorrow, of course, January 6th, the third anniversary thereof. And how do I know this man's a dictator? Press credentials denied for yours truly. Newton, Iowa. I was going, Dom. I had my whole day planned. Now I'm just going to watch the Badgers beat Nebraska tomorrow.
Now, what about the Stabby McStabberson church thing?
That is a differing
that
event. And you know who else is on the stump for Trump in Iowa? This is hysterical to me. The Huckabee Sanders and the Mike Huckabee. They're doing a church for Trump. But I signed up next Thursday morning, I believe, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, just to confirm whether or not we're personally being singled out by the Trump campaign for not admittance, or whether it's a capacity overload at the Wedding Rec Hall community college venue site that they picked at Newton College, Newton, Iowa. Just might not be a big enough wedding reception hall that Trump's playing there to allow for the finest of media like the Devil's Advocates. So I also signed up for next Thursday morning. And I'm already going to be in Des Moines, Iowa. I'll be nursing that hangover. Been telling you folks, I'll be at the Marriott Hotel bar getting drunk with Newt Gingrich and whoever else comes around. And then I'm going to get up Thursday morning, and I better be credentialed at some church function with Trump and Stabby McStabberson, Ben Carson, I think outside of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I have put in for credentials. I have not been accepted or denied for that.
Not yet. Okay.
Hell, I haven't even seen my credential response from CNN. CNN's doing a non-sanctioned RNC final debate before the caucuses next Wednesday night. That's the occasion that brings me to Des Moines, Dom. That and that bar. I love that bar.
I know you do.
I've learned many secrets through loose lips at that bar. And, once you learn a secret, Dom, you tell it on the radio, don't you? That's why I'll be in Des Moines. I hope you join me someday in Iowa soon, Dom. But little dictatorish, not letting Crute in. Heavy on the dick part.
844-967-2789. Kathy from Madison, you're up. Welcome, Kathy. What do you got for us?
Hey, Kathy.
Well, hi. I've enjoyed your show so far. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I watched the whole January 6th thing live at the time, and I'm retired, so I have time to do things like that. But, I had heard, and I listened to commentary afterwards, and I know that Trump had ordered whoever was next in line or could do this to order the National Guard and others off to stay out of the picture. And like Nancy Pelosi had to later beg for, help beyond the police. And so, I mean, he's clearly at fault there. So that was all. And I don't want to take time away from Mr. Mahoney. And he's been a good cop as far as I'm concerned. I like Mr. Mahoney. So, all right. That's all. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yes.
Happy Friday to you, Kathy. I've always liked me some Dave Mahoney, but puff pass. Dave's moved down.
This is a problem, man.
844-967-2789 against my better judgment and in line with, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. CJ, welcome back, CJ. What do you got for us this fine Friday? Happy January 6th Eve. I know you probably celebrate.
Oh, I'm sure you do too. I'm sure it's just a fabulous day, the way the president celebrated today in his divide
Celebrated?
and conquer. Yeah.
You're either
What
on
up,
the
Joe?
right side of history or you're on the wrong side of history, CJ. Which side do you choose?
He sure can't run on his record, though, can he? The world's on fire, Dom and Crute. The world's on fire, and it all happened underneath this president. And where do you want to start? The Middle East? Yeah, that's quite a success.
Well, we were talking about January 6th, CJ. Why
Russia
can't you
and
ever stay
Ukraine?
on topic, dude?
Because you avoid the most important topic that faces everyone.
Bye. Nice knowing you, though. Have a great day. 844-967-2789. No, you got to play by our rules. You don't have a radio show, CJ. No one would give you one. So if you want to join this, the greatest radio show ever, you've got to at least try to acknowledge the topic of the moment. And it's January 6th. We got a fine U.S. attorney joining us very, very shortly. He is James Santel. He's the host of the Morning Cannolis. You can call him up and claim the world's on fire tomorrow morning, but he's also going to want to talk about the January 6th. The insurrection led by your guy who's failed to take responsibility, but soon perhaps in a court of law, because that March 4th trial date, it's sneaking up quick. And you can say, oh, he wasn't charged with insurrection. Well, there are many felonious crimes he has been charged with, like 91 last count. And I think he's going down. And I think he knows he's going down. And in fact, even in the civil suit, Letitia Jameschi raised the bar in the Trump org civil suit in New York. $370 million they're seeking. That's going to sting a little. That's going to hurt. Ouch. Tastes like burning. But ultimately, the January 6th is the topic of this fine program. We got a fine guest coming next. He is former U.S. attorney, friend of the Devil's Advocates, and host of one of the better radio shows in existence, Morning Cannolis. He is James Santel, our good friend. Stick around.
Check. I mean, nothing's changed on this end. Why would that happen? 1 2 1 2.
I don't know,
Check.
but you're sounding.
Check. 1 check 1 2 check.
Try.
I mean, literally, dude. You heard that, right? I mean, it was just
it was just sudden.
Boom, it just went out.
Try unplugging that XLR cord and
All right,
plugging
hang
it
on.
back in.
Otherwise, we put Dom on the phone. We got to jump for the next half an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we do after that.
Check 1 2 check 1 2 check 1 2.
That's sounding okay again.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
I wonder if that XLR cord might just be shot. It might need to be. Or maybe it's the port itself.
It could be the port. I mean, we have. I don't want to start fucking with it right now.
Yeah.
It's going from the XLR, but it's going into an output 3/4 inch hole at the back of the DBX. I wonder if that should be going into the input. But why would it?
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with it right now. I'll.
All right. Well, I mean, if this happens again, that's going to be the fix. So if this happens again, just turn my mic down. So when I unplug and plug in, you don't hear that scratchy sound. And then maybe I'll text Brian, see if he can come by or
Yeah, see what Brian says.
All right. All right.
Cool.
Thanks, dude.
Yep. Jim, can you hear me there?
I can hear you well, Nate. How about me to you?
You are sounding good. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Can you just talk a little bit more for me, just so I can see you?
I will be delighted to chat with you at any time, including right before we go on the air. So all of that sounds good. I am ready to roll and have some fun this afternoon, as always.
And you're coming through loud and clear on my end. Yeah, so yeah, we got about 5 minutes. You're the one who likes the Four Tops, right?
You know, I'm kind of a big fan of Motown. Yes, I think we did Four Tops last time. You know, I'm also okay with some of the Supreme stuff and what else is out there? Any other old kind of 60s, early 70s stuff coming out of Detroit. All that's good stuff.
Yeah. I'll get something set for you here. So
wonderful.
Should be good to go. Have a couple more minutes here. So I'm going to go.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Nate. We'll be ready to roll. Thanks.
Ooh.
This is Civic Media News. Now, here's what you need to know closer to home.
For WMDX News, I'm Nate Weggehout. Nobody was hurt after a plane flipped over at the Middleton Municipal Airport yesterday. It happened just before 1 p.m. Middleton police say that the plane flipped over while the pilot was driving on the ground before takeoff. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating the incident. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes says that while reported incidents of hate crimes have remained steady since October 7th, those crimes often go underreported.
How many occurred where community members felt as if they didn't know what to do? Is this free speech? I'm offended, but I don't know if this rises to the level of criminality.
Barnes helped launch a new hate crime task force earlier this week. He says that if you think you're witnessing a potential hate crime, to let them know immediately. And that's what you need to know. I'm Nate Weggehout, WMDX News.
This is Chad Spade for Chad's Design Build. We're proud to employ some of the best carpenters and remodeling professionals in our industry. Are you honest and hardworking? Do you love to improve people's lives by improving their homes? Chad's Design Build offers excellent compensation and benefits focused on outstanding customer service, professional design, construction management, and craftsmanship, all in a nurturing, positive workplace. Whether you're thinking about remodeling your home or considering joining our team, go to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more.
The Bucks over the Spurs. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Bucks beat the San Antonio Spurs 125-121. Giannis Antetokounmpo, named the Eastern Conference Player of the Month, had 44 points. The Spurs' 7'4" Victor Wembanyama blocked 5 shots, including one by Giannis, and talked about facing the Greek Freak.
Somebody I grew up watching and one of the greatest players in the world, so it's always extra motivation, and I want to go at everyone and be the bad guy on the court, so it was a great matchup.
The Bucks play the Rockets in Houston tomorrow night. NFL, it's the Packers and the Bears Sunday. Call it dinner and a movie. Rookie wide receiver Bo Melton revealed that quarterback Jordan Love invites the guys over for dinner, then goes over game film with them.
Jay Love, he's a great guy. We go to dinners at his house. Mondays we eat, we go over film, before the week starts, just to bond, staying connected with him.
Packers rookie wide receiver Bo Melton. Sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. Mostly cloudy tonight, a few flurries and lows in the upper 20s. More clouds around for tomorrow. Again, flurries and snow showers possible, high in the mid-30s. Snow wraps up tomorrow night, mostly cloudy and mid-30s Sunday. Another chance for snow returns to the area by Monday. Right now it's 33.
People across Wisconsin are enjoying the rewards, stability, and flexibility of a career in healthcare. Why not you? Wish Caregiver Careers can get you started as a certified direct care professional. You'll learn the skills you need to make life better for older adults or people with a disability. All training is free and online. Plus, earn $500 in bonuses. Start your new career. Sign up today at wiscaregivercdcp.com, sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
Did you know this local radio station is part of Civic Media? Learn more about the entire network at civicmedia.us. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates. Then at 6, stay tuned for the...
Check.
The Devil's Advocates radio show is broadcast under a time brokerage agreement between Devil Radio and Civic Media, Inc. Some portions of this program may be pre-recorded. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Civic Media Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
And now, here's your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dom, it's a happy hour, the Friday edition, rolling into it. And we got a fine guest. He's joined us live via stream. He is James Santel, former U.S. attorney, host of the Morning Cannolis right on the Civic Media Network, 9 to 11 on the Saturday mornings, and then replaying on Sundays. Jim, welcome back, man. How you doing?
Hey, Jim.
It is good. Always good to be with you, gentlemen. A big news day once again. Fridays.
That's why we work most Fridays. At least I do. Dom's always touch and go.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a good Friday.
Jim, it is January 6th Eve. And for those scoring at home, the topic will be the January 6th, at least for a minute. 3 years later, Jim, there's been some accountability for the riotous mob that was encouraged to be there by the former president. But there's been very little accountability, to my opinion, sir, 3 years later, for a guy like Donald Trump, who's rallying in Newton, Iowa tomorrow, walking a free man despite the charges. What's your reaction, Counselor?
I agree with you. The statistics on this are about 1,200 people have been charged, most of them, great majority of them, on campus, on the congressional grounds, legislative grounds there on January 6th. About 900 of them are convicted already. We've got 714 pleas or so. Again, those include Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, those kinds of folks who are at the lower levels, mid-levels, and engage in a lot of violent activity. And that's the record of the Department of Justice, again, through the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. To your point, the question is, when do the folks who are really responsible for prompting all of those folks to come to the Capitol grounds on January 6th, go to the Ellipse, walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, go to Congress that day and attack our democracy, attack the Congress, try to stop the counting of votes? And we know that Jack Smith has done something in that direction. That is, he is, through the grand jury process, he has indicted Donald Trump 4 counts. Those include 2 obstruction counts, which are significant. And Judge Chutkan, the D.C. District Court, has tentatively scheduled that, again, to begin in March, but also put that on hold while we wrestle with issues related to things like immunity and other issues related to that. So to your point today, 3 years out, we do not have accountability for Donald Trump. And I would add the other unindicted co-conspirators in that indictment were also there. Many others, including fake electors around the country, also charged in some of our states. None of them, with the exception of one in Michigan who's pled guilty, none of them yet responsible in the courts of law.
Jim, you lead me wonderfully to my next question. Perhaps you saw the reporting just before the first of the year. New tapes from CNN, apparently Kenneth Chesebro with Michigan investigators. And my suspicion is Chesebro also recorded these interviews and he released them to the media because there are so many different times where CNN is effectively quoting the only one that would know the commonality between so many of these incidents, and that is Kenneth Chesebro. And Jim, when I read the article, and we laid it out for the people right here on the airwaves, but when I read the article and played the sound of Chesebro's testimony to Michigan prosecutors, this was a procedural coup. It was meant to overturn the actual outcome of the election. They knew it wasn't the actual outcome. They were trying to find a justification to overturn the will of the voters. And this was directed at the highest levels by the Trump campaign. And Jim, we know this just from the public record, from the reporting that we've seen. We have no idea how much other evidence and communications and text messages there might be. But Jim, it all seems very damning. Why are we still waiting? We don't even have charges against anyone here in the state of Wisconsin.
Absolutely. And to your point embedded in there, we don't know what other things Jack Smith has and the AG in Michigan has, and of course, Fani Willis has, and Nevada has, those kinds of folks who are going forward with these charges. Lots of things presumably in their quiver to shoot, if you will, during the course of a trial coming up here. But the issue related to Chesebro is compelling. He plainly was the guy not just in the room. He was the one who, you recall, wrote the original memorandum called the Wisconsin Memorandum. Later on became the larger memorandum that contemplated this entire cross-country attempt to overthrow the results against 7 different states. He's a key person. And so the things that he is saying are very, very helpful for the prosecution. More importantly, for all of us, they provide this clear sense that this was not people simply exercising the possibility of the electors by the vice president, by the Speaker of the House being found inadequate. These are people who intended purposefully to make false statements, to articulate that they were people who they were not, and for the purpose, again, of undermining the electoral process. And so his testimony is that glue, that cement that brings it all together. He was a director, and he also knows about Donald Trump. And like all these other folks, including Sidney Powell, perhaps cooperating out there as well, maybe in Georgia, other places, those are the people who can also bring in the connection between fake electors, himself, and Donald Trump, and these other people we've talked about.
And in regards to Wisconsin, Chesebro was in the room at the state capitol a block away from me. He was in the room with the fake Trump electors. Although Andrew Hitt claimed he didn't know who he was, he took video while in the room while they were signing these fraudulent affidavits. And not only that, when these fake electors did not arrive in D.C. as anticipated, and the panic was going on, and they were considering chartered flights, and someone had to chaperone these fake electors to the vice president. Well, Chesebro was also the recipient of the fake electors from the Wisconsin, from the Michigan contingent. He delivered them at Scott Perry's office, and then new news, we find out they were delivered to Ron Johnson. And whether it took a second or a minute, he was willing to do a hell of a lot more than simply just be a conduit of these documents. Jim, I've said a lot. Unpack.
Sure. Absolute commentary on at least 2 of those points. One is that, again, he is standing there in the room. And so when we think about investigating and prosecuting, one of the other reasons that you will prosecute, obviously, is because people engage in criminal conduct. That's the core issue. One of the things that happens, of course, is when you prosecute them, Fani Willis is beginning to see this, Michigan's beginning to see this, they come forward and they tell you what the conversations were, not just in the room, but also in the hallway, maybe on the phone the night before. Hey, we're coming to this room. Here's what you're going to do. Here's our point. Here's our purpose. All those things are not recorded, but nonetheless are the appropriate subjects of investigative focus. That's what you get also by going after the electors here in the state of Wisconsin, other places. They may not go to jail, for prison for long periods of time, but they provide the other information that, again, describes the overall conspiracy. And yes, that's what it is. Fani Willis describes it as a RICO conspiracy. They also provide this additional part of this. As to Ron Johnson, we have said this before. I have very little doubt that when it comes to the kinds of things that the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., that is, you identify people who are witnesses. We know who those are. Then there are subjects and there are targets. And all kinds of names fall in those different categories. Subjects are people who you look at and you say, gee, they were involved in this. We don't know if they have criminal culpability, but we'll see how the evidence plays out. Targets are people like Donald Trump. and the other co-conspirators, unindicted co-conspirators, who we know have committed crimes, and we just need to establish it. I have very little doubt that Ron Johnson's name, among many other members of Congress probably, are on the list of at least subjects by the Department of Justice. May in fact be more than that, depending upon, again, your involvement in this. Basic conspiracy law, you're in for a dime, you're in for whatever the expression is, you're in for $1. You can participate in a small portion of the conspiracy and still be held responsible for the entire enterprise, the undertaking, without knowing all the different aspects of it. Probably Ron Johnson and these others knew a whole lot more than we are even getting in the public domain.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. James Santel, former U.S. Attorney, host of Morning Cannoli Saturdays here on the Civic Media Network. Jim, happy Friday, man. The news does drop on Fridays. It's great to be with you. Jamel Bowie, opinion columnist in the New York Times, had a great piece we posted up on the Devil's Advocates Facebook page. If Trump is not an insurrectionist, what is he? And breaking news today, Jim, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on whether or not Donald Trump can be on the ballot in these myriad of states. February 8th, next month, coming up real quick. And to Bowie's point, if Trump is not an insurrectionist, what is he? I mean, he called them to Washington. Remember, we'll be wild, right? He fired them up with incendiary speech. You gotta fight like hell. You're not gonna have a country anymore. He sent them to the Capitol. I'm gonna go walk with you, Jim. I'm gonna walk with you. They attacked the Capitol. He did nothing. And then when he finally did something, did nothing for 3 hours. That is an act. Doing nothing to me, that's an act, right? That you make a purposeful point to not do anything. And then finally, he said, go home, and they went home. He conducted this whole thing. In my mind, Jim, the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take it up. How do you think this plays out? What are your thoughts on the process and on the facts?
Right. Not surprising the Supreme Court takes this on. We will all be watching on February 8th. We can listen to the oral argument live, and we get a sense about who's going where with this. Again, I would recommend, to your good point, Dom, anybody who doubts that this was an insurrection, read the Colorado opinion from the Supreme Court. It's long, it's lengthy, but here's an assignment again for the coming weekend. Read that, and when you come away from that, this is a court that's looking at the trial evidence was presented by the lower court judge in Colorado, assessing all that and finding, yeah, this was insurrection. Oh, by the way, the 14th Amendment also applies here. It is a compelling piece of jurisprudence here to be taken up. Supreme Court has many different avenues here. We've talked about this before. Probably not going to embrace the big issues. Could go off in some procedural things. Could also find that only a legislature maybe should be the one deciding that. My own prediction is they will probably put him back on the ballot, but he's going to lose, I think, on two other Supreme Court cases, including the immunity thing ultimately, and another case having to do with whether or not the charges in the January 6th case apply to him as well. All those pending for the Supreme Court.
It's too much losing. James Antel, our fine guest. Stick around. He's sticking around. He is a former U.S. attorney. He's the host of his own fine show, The Morning Cannoli. Find him tomorrow morning, 9 to 11. Find more of us in about a minute, 10 seconds.
I virtually, you can't, I mean, my lack of involvement was seconds worth of texting.
Yeah. Partner now with the greatest radio show ever and start getting return on your investment immediately. The Devil's Advocates are a small business just like you, and like you, we can't afford advertising that offers no return. The Devil's Advocates listeners support our sponsors and the mission. Tell you when your messages are working and put cash in your register. So invest your ad dollars to reach our raving Madison and Dane County fans, or affordably reach the whole state, Chicago, Minneapolis, and our nationwide stream audience today. The Devil's Advocates can be the voice of your business, hold special events at your location, interview your staff for satisfied customers to lift your business. Contact us today, Crute at darnwy.com. That's Crute at darnwy.com.
I'm John. I'm Gordy. Join us for the John and Gordy Show, 6 to 8 a.m. weekdays.
Right here on WMDX Bad Radio in Madison.
Your family won't want to miss this shindig, hullabaloo, and politics.
John and Gordy Show, weekday mornings.
Think you know politics? Again, welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
You're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. James Santel, our friend, former U.S. attorney, host of Morning Cannoli here on the Civic Media Network on Saturdays, replayed on Sundays. Jim, thank you for sticking around. I want to get touch back on one of your points before we went to break. The myriad of cases that the Supreme Court will take up regarding the former president. The immunity, this ultimate, grand, unlimited immunity, seems like a farce on its face. When does that happen? Have there been dates on that, and how will that impact, the trial dates as they're scheduled right now, in your opinion?
Right. Exactly. Again, the easy substantive thing to say is this, although it's very strong to say it, Supreme Court has got to find that no president is completely immune. They've got to do that. If they don't find that, at least they should do that unanimously. But if the majority of them don't do that, then we are talking about the republic beginning to crumble, right? That's got to make that decision. They've got to hand him a loss on that. So the question is, what's going on here? The Supreme Court decided not to accept Jack Smith's invitation to take this up. It's back before the Court of Appeals. And so I need to be back on your show again next week. There's my self-invitation, because my understanding is that as early as next week, Monday or so, the Court of Appeals, the DC Court of Appeals, is going to be entertaining that argument. Presumably, they will issue an opinion. It's going to be a 3-judge panel. Again, they've also got to say, there's no immunity. Then, of course, Donald Trump will take it back to the Supreme Court, and they should very quickly resolve that one to hand him a loss, a clear, unequivocal loss on that. He's not immune. The opposite direction is unthinkable. Again, the other issue, which we chatted about right before the break, again, is again the other issues here before the Supreme Court. Those could go in some different directions, including Colorado. My sense is they'll hand him 1 win, 1 loss. And then also there's this third case. It's actually called Fisher, and it has to do with whether or not about 100 defendants charged on the Capitol grounds that day, whether the charges against them can stand under something called 18 U.S.C. 1512. Supreme Court could make a decision about that. The reason why that's significant to Donald Trump is also charged on 2 counts under the same statute. No oral arguments scheduled on that one yet, but that could also dramatically affect what happens in the federal case involving Donald Trump in D.C. Lots going on.
Counselor, this one I'm going to throw to you because I know you get into the granular detail, but my understanding is there is no textual reason why the U.S. Supreme Court should take up the immunity case unless there is a conviction. So if Trump gets convicted, he can certainly appeal his pleadings of presidential immunity. But my understanding through the breeding of smart people is there's no reason for them to get involved because it's not written that way. That's not the way the statute would read. There are other cases where they talk about, well, you've got to wait. It's written into the text. It's not written here, is my understanding, Counselor. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And again, under normal circumstances, if the 3 of us were indicted, that sort of thing, well, we may not allege immunities, but we would get the entire case resolved by the district court, then goes up to the circuit court on all kinds of things, including whether or not there are immunities out there, jury selection, evidentiary presentations, all kinds of things. And then if the Supreme Court decides to take the case on, it would do that. Hopeful here that in a case where, again, Donald Trump getting some very special consideration here by the federal courts, the D.C. court hearing this case, the best thing the Supreme Court could do to move this along, we talked about it the last time I was on your show, the D.C. Court of Appeals affirms the lower decision from Judge Chutkan finding no immunity applies. Donald Trump appeals to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court in a 1-sentence order says we're not taking the case, and the law of the case is the D.C. opinion, goes back to Judge Chutkan, and she can get this back on her calendar. Maybe not in time for March 4th, although, again, outside possibility, depending upon how closely all of this falls into line. That's the scenario that gets this done more quickly. Supreme Court should not take a look at this. It should not grant cert. This is not a close question.
So the answer to my question that you already asked is that I was going to ask is March 4th date. We're talking just over 8 weeks away. Given those scenarios, okay, if not March 4th, how much longer do you think it would take to get some solution on that particular question?
Right. It is a great question because, again, TikTok, it's going to be the theme of 2024 timing, right? And so you've got a district court judge. She plainly has other things on her docket, including criminal cases, civil cases that are out there. And she's plainly carved out a huge amount of time. We already know she got some jury selection things underway already. She's got weeks set aside for jury selection itself, presumably months of trial activity here as well. She's got to find a big chunk of time. And so that's her challenge. Not to say she cannot do that, say, for example, in an April, a May, or June, or July when we're doing conventions here in Milwaukee and Chicago. Imagine that, right? But again, she'd have to carve out that period of time. She could probably go to the chief judge there and say, listen, I've got to get some consideration here, maybe because of the government, that overall national interest in getting this resolved, have some of these cases assigned to other folks, also on the DC court, district court, and let me take this one, let me resolve this and get this underway. It is not impossible to think that that trial will be not impossible to think it won't be conducted. Very possible it will be conducted before the election itself. The appeals, on the other hand, will not be resolved by November. That's difficult to imagine.
My understanding, Donald Trump and his attorney is very critical, filing briefs that, apparently Jack Smith should be paying him for continuing to move some of the things forward while this is supposed to be on a stay. I didn't get into the details of it, but there's a stay on this, and Jack Smith is still providing some legal maneuvers. What's your sense on how that's supposed to work?
Does the word ridiculous come to mind? Again, another of these completely unfounded motions intended to make us all, not all of us, but some of us think, ooh, there's a real there isn't. The district court judges said, I'm going to suspend, she said, the trial date. That's not to say that the prosecution can't do other things to make these happen, anticipating that. That's what he's doing. This is a motion that's, again, frivolous, it's meritless, should go nowhere, and it will go nowhere.
Jim, the New York case, Letitia James, my understanding, they filed closing arguments. They don't actually offer them as oral arguments. They filed them, and as part of her closing arguments, an ask of $370 million.
Ooh.
Some would perceive that to be a lot of money. Now, Donald Trump has already come out and said Letitia James should be paying me money. There's a theme here, Jim.
Right, there is. At least we're consistent in our pleadings, are we not, right? And so once again, this is significant. Obviously, you initially asked for $250 million. That was the number we've been bandying about for a couple of years here. What happened is we had a trial, and that's what's in front of Judge Engoron. And now we've had all these economic people come in. And now, based upon, as you said, the results of that oral argument, closing, we've decided it's more than that. And that's what this is about. Plainly, there'll be a disposition by Judge Engoron, presumably sometime this month, maybe early next month. We'll find out how much money he then awards.
Last 60 seconds, real quick on my end. Jim, does Donald Trump, does he have to be in the courtroom during this criminal trial?
During a criminal trial, the answer would be yes. A civil trial, no. Interesting, I hear he's going to be in the D.C. Court of Appeals for the argument next week, which is interesting. Not at the council, presumably, but he's going to be there in some way. So he's going to be in court a lot in 2024 and beyond.
Counselor, Milwaukee County DA John Chisholm not seeking re-election. You got a quick response or reaction?
Sure.
Are you running, sir?
Right. Good guy, worked in a lot for many, many years, and a wonderful public servant. Best wishes to him in his next challenges out there.
Well done. Quite efficient. James Santel, tune in tomorrow morning, 9 to 11. He doesn't have to be efficient. It'll be the morning cannolis. Get your fill. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate you coming around.
Thanks, Jim.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Jim, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you once again. Always great fun. Friday afternoon's kind of fun too. So you're working this weekend, I assume, again? Yes. Are you?
No, I'll have off the weekend.
Good for you. And then starting again on Monday. So we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good weekend. Good New Year. And thanks, Nate, for making this happen.
Yeah, of course. Happy New Year. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
You too.
The Bucks over the Spurs. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Bucks beat the San Antonio Spurs 125-121. Giannis Antetokounmpo, named the Eastern Conference Player of the Month, had 44 points. The Spurs' 7'4" Victor Wembanyama blocked 5 shots, including one by Giannis, and talked about facing the Greek Freak.
Somebody I grew up watching and one of the greatest players in the world, so it's always extra motivation, and I want to go at everyone and be the bad guy on the court. So it was a great matchup.
The Bucks play the Rockets in Houston tomorrow night. NFL, it's the Packers and the Bears Sunday. Call it dinner and a movie. Rookie wide receiver Bo Melton revealed that quarterback Jordan Love invites the guys over for dinner, then goes over game film with them.
Jay Love, he's a great guy. We go to dinners at his house. Mondays we eat. We go over film. Before the week starts. Just to bond, staying connected with him.
That's Packers rookie wide receiver Bo Melton. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. Mostly cloudy tonight, a few flurries and lows in the upper 20s. More clouds around for tomorrow. Again, flurries and snow showers possible, high in the mid-30s. Snow wraps up tomorrow night, mostly cloudy and mid-30s Sunday. Another chance for snow returns to the area by Monday. Right now it's 31.
This is Chad Spate. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed by the hatred and misinformation that consumes our world, but I also know that we cannot build a house of justice and inclusion on a foundation of hatred and lies. We have to practice what we preach. At Chad's Design Build, we confront injustice the same way we confront a poorly built home, with love, compassion, intelligence, and persistence. We engage our community the way we engage our clients, with honesty and humility and the dogged determination that we can do better. Chad's Design Build, remodeling done well with love.
On air at 92.7 megahertz frequency modulation and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. This is Mad Radio 92.7.
The big and tall of political talk. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday edition, a happy hour. Well, it's January 6th Eve up in here, and we want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one, former U.S. Attorney James Santel. And if you love you some Jim Santel, and who doesn't, tune in for the morning cannolis, 9 to 11 a.m. If you're not local, check your Civic Media app, civicmedia.us. And since I've been banned from the Trump rally tomorrow, Dom, on January 6th, I'm going to watch a little college basketball. My Badgers are going to beat the Nebraska Cornhuskers, I greatly suspect. And then Sunday afternoon, it's the Bears and the Packers. And I miss the Aaron Rodgers days in this regard. He always owned the Packers.
The
Bears, right?
Own the Bears.
That's what they put on the Wikipedia, at least for a few days. But what happened to our guy, Dom? What happened to former Packer, future Hall of Famer, perhaps, Aaron Rodgers? He was a good guy. I liked him. I cheered for him.
I don't know, man.
I got a jersey with his number on it, or at least the kids do. Dom, Washington Post, earlier this week, we air the grievances. I'm going to throw one of mine out there.
All right.
Aaron Rodgers was a provocateur with a purpose. Now he's just a troll.
Oh, no.
This is a perspective at the Washington Post offered by Candace Buckner. Here's what she writes. In Aaron Rodgers, you really, really picked the wrong ally. Don't worry, because you all did. Every one of you, in your collective rush to have a mainstream sports star validate your beliefs, sympathize with your convictions, and echo your true thoughts. You found a willing and likable spokesman in Rodgers. All you had to do was massage his rapturous ego by listening to one of his long-winded podcast interviews or reading one of his cover stories, and somewhere in all that cascading twaddle, you discovered an opinion that aligned with yours. Black people, you once thought you'd found your rare white quarterback honest enough to express the obvious in how NFL owners had blackballed Colin Kaepernick. Nerds at heart and fun-loving weirdos, guys like Dom, You tripped over yourselves in unearthing similarities with the most popular athlete in America, most popular game, a real-life jock invited to sit at your lunch table, who also had a passion for Wes Anderson films, Halo 3, Game of Thrones, and the spiral dynamics theory. I don't know what that is, Dom. That must be for you. But libertarians, you used to be one of those. You believed you had a peer who happened to star in an egalitarian game for a living, but also thumbed through Atlas Shrugged and raged against governmental overreach, especially as related to personal freedoms. Religious nuns, also Dom, in a league saturated with Christian evangelical overtones, you related with football secular maverick, whose life motto is to question everything.
Crute and everybody else everywhere, you thought you could get behind this A-list celebrity who had a beating heart for children living with cancer and for kids who had lost a loved one in combat. A rich and famous guy, but a well-meaning human being, just like the rest of us. Over the past several years, Rogers has offered himself as a champion of both counterculture ideals and conventional wisdom, appearing as if he had that special ability to be a friend to marginalized groups that could use the established name as a more of accepted voice over their megaphones. But be careful of the allies you choose, because a man sequestered on an island where only his own opinion matters can never stand as anyone's advocate.
That's why we stand for you. We're your advocates.
For the devil's advocates. 844-967-2789. These days, when Rogers wakes up in the morning with that weaselly smirk on his face, he seems intent on fanning more chaos into the world. His message no longer connects with the general population, or at least the demographic of a sports fan who will tune in to the Pat McAfee show for some low-consequence entertainment. Hey, low-consequence entertainment, it sounds like us. Instead, Rogers has chosen the side that would rather criminalize the nation's leading infectious disease expert and casually accuse a late-night talk show host of being linked to a sex trafficking. During his weekly paid appearance with McAfee on Tuesday, a show sidekick teed up Rogers to say something inflammatory regarding a list of associates tied to Jeffrey Epstein, and Rogers obliged. There's a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, really hoping that doesn't come out, Rogers said, dropping Kimmel's name from out of nowhere. It's a sad commentary on our world that anyone can say anything about a person, just throwing unsubstantiated nonsense against the wall, and someone somewhere will actually believe it. Yet it's even more jarring when the loose-lipped accuser used to speak with the recognition that his platform came with a certain responsibility. 2016, Rogers made an appearance on comedian Pete Holmes' podcast, You Made It Weird, and in that nearly 2-hour conversation, the topics range from the existence of UFOs to gluten-free soap, whether God also loves the team that loses, Rogers' favorite shooter video game, and much, much more. Though he had won a Super Bowl, even as he lifted the Lombardi trophy, he said he questioned whether that was all there was to life. In the years that followed, he would turn inward, seeking a larger meaning. Although other men might allow a Super Bowl triumph to define him, not Rogers. Honestly, I think the root of it is this. You get to a point where I think you just desire to be looked at as more than just what you're known for, trying to change the narrative a little bit. When they think about you, what's the first thing they think about? Rogers asked Holmes and wanted to say, I just believe that there's more going on in what we see, and there's more going on in what we're told, and there's more going on in what we should know. And that hope for me spurs me to use my influence in better ways, to connect with more people, to love better, to judge less. So that works for me, quote unquote. Contrast those words to his Tuesday appearance with McAfee. You've got to take back your country from those effing monsters, Rogers said. Aaron Rodgers, let me repeat that. I didn't hear this part of it. You've got to take back our country from those effing monsters. He has become a crusader for his own fringe beliefs, such a far cry from someone who at least had been a provocateur with a purpose. So his support for Kaepernick in 2017 could have been more substantive. At least he was a white man who actually got it, understanding how critics focused solely on the method of black NFL players' protests taking a knee, but overlooked the reasons behind them. Rogers was the representative from the other side who stepped up and said something. He was an ally. Now it's hard to imagine Rogers as anything but a man unmoored in his own mission. Rogers finds it appealing to make people uncomfortable, which explains why he'll show up on to McAfee's show, a format that intends to mimic the bro vibes of a locker room and announce with glee, Fauci's a criminal. It's stunning to watch Rodgers spiral into polarization, especially when McAfee, just by being relatable, has created a brand in retirement that dwarfs his NFL career. And when the Mannings, Peyton and Eli can dominate media without fatiguing the public. Instead of building a bridge that would connect his playing career to a lucrative life in the mainstream after retiring, Rodgers would rather wall himself behind conspiracy theories and retreat into the darkness of his own warped beliefs. He no longer sides with the masses who thought they had found a likable companion inside the mighty NFL. He no longer represents you, us, and maybe he never did. I think that's probably the answer, Crute. Candace Buckner, a perspective at the Washington Post. A lot of people really got fired up about this article, Crute.
That guy got 51 touchdown passes one year. That's what I loved about Aaron Rodgers. That guy could throw that pigskin, man. He could zip it in there. And he had the amazing ability to, draw people off sides and all the things that I admire about a great football player.
He's good at his sport. Okay, he's good at his job.
But be careful about your role models, right, Dom? You and I are not role models. It is a little bit sad because I did like him, as a persona. I liked Aaron Rodgers. Hell, saw him on the State Farm commercials, him and Jake, and, he had a lot of fun. Every week of his career, they picked captains every week. And somehow Aaron Rodgers would sneak into the team captain's photo. Every game of his entire career, he appears in the team's captain's photo, whether or not he had been named team captain. I mean, it's a good-natured guy, right?
Is it, or is that really just kind of a D-bag move that kind of shows you exactly who he is? You know what I mean? I guess it depends on how you perceive that kind of behavior to be. Fun and entertaining, or
well, I never perceived it to be a D-bag move, but apparently you do.
I'm just asking.
You know a little something about that, don't you, Dom?
Yeah, come on, man. So
why did he become a troll?
Or is this he's just becoming more of who he is? You know what I'm saying?
I think he's transformed. I think after he broke up with Danica Patrick, it was all downhill.
His heart was broken, man, and now it's never good again.
I mean, I thought he won like a Super Bowl while he was dating Olivia Munn, and then he had the Danica Patrick days, but then he moved on to the Shailene Woodley, and man, he just went off and took that.
Are you saying shut up and dribble, Crute? What are you telling me here, man? You're not telling me to shut up and dribble. I am telling
you, he did a little too much ayahuasca that day on the island. I think he's still searching for his soul. I think he wore a little thin, Dom.
I don't know.
Still like the guy. I mean, so what? He's an NFL, maybe future NFL player. We'll see if he recovers from the Achilles heel. But what he will not recover from is himself. He's basically blackballed himself from polite society. He could have been a rich, wealthy man for the rest of his life. And I'm not saying
he probably will
be. Yeah, but Michael Jordan made a hell of a lot more money endorsing sneakers than he ever did bouncing a basketball. You know what I mean? Aaron Rodgers might have had a sweet $20 million a year career, but that ends. That's going to end soon. I mean, he's never going to be the same player. Maybe he'll play to 40. But that sweet endorsement money, that could have rolled in for another 20, 30 years. Hell, to his grave for all we know.
Come on, Alex Jones.
And he's not going to get any more.
Guy, he's got plenty of time. Look how much money all the Trump hustlers are making from the Trump followers, man. I mean, we've been how many Donald Trump
watch next? You'll be
all the vendors, man. All the vendors.
He'll be going down the Brett Favre route. He'll be
Donald Trump. They're there selling the Trump swag because those megas will buy it. So there's plenty of work. But here's what I didn't know: we've got to take back our country from these effing monsters. What does that mean? I mean, literally
talking about Fauci and those that would be pro-vaccine.
Oh,
that's all tied to his anti-Fauci.
Right, this is the immunized guy. I mean, when he said he was immunized and got COVID and gave COVID, I'm not clear what the storyline was on that. But he said he was immunized. He didn't say he was vaccinated because he took some vitamin C and cocaine and now he's immunized. I don't know what that means. But if nothing else, that was already back then was already an indicator of wow, man, really, dude. So I bet if you go back and look and maybe a little sharper glasses, this was probably there the whole time. 844-967-2789. Let's get to it. Jack from the Mac, you're up. Happy Friday, Jack. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Jack.
Just first a quick comment on Aaron Rodgers, but I have something a little more serious. But I think he just took one too many hits during his tenure on the Packers as their main quarterback.
Do you think he's going to follow Brett Favre into like being a shyster representative for like the Mississippi Welfare Agency and give no-show speeches? I mean, he doesn't have much of a future, does he? Copper tone arm wraps. I don't know what him and Brett are going to be endorsing in the future.
Yeah, good luck with that. Anyway, grievance day, right?
Yes, lay it on us.
So here's my grievance. This is the problem. Too many Americans by far have been convinced of one of the following things about January 6th, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. So it's going to maybe take a while. First of all, they've been convinced that maybe this was a normal tourist visit, which a few got out of hand. Of course, it wasn't. About 1,000 have already been convicted. There might have been an incident, but it wasn't serious. Yeah, it was kind of serious. Hey, Mike Pence, gallows already constructed, pretty obviously planned, like the electoral fraud. Those who participated in the violence, they were patriots. The election result was fraudulent. What? Lost over 600 evidence-free court cases, claiming that, and recounts and audits and fraud and certification by all 50 states. Over half were in Republican hands. These lies have been perpetuated by Fox News and similar outlets, and they've been repeatedly claimed by the Republican leadership.
Jack, thank you. I know that list is long. Stick around. One more segment of the Devil's Advocates, 844-967-2789.
You, Aaron Rodgers.
You done messed up, Aaron.
National Guard, aired by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association and this station.
Luttrell spent more than 8 years in foster care. His world changed when he was adopted at 15 with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption.
I think about how much we love him, and I wish we could have had him for his entire childhood.
The foundation is changing the lives of thousands of teens waiting in foster care. You can help. Learn more at davethomasfoundation.org.
Mad Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, our last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up on the lines right now, 844-967-2789. Stick around. The Maggie Dawn Show comes up next.
Dominic, on the text line, someone texted in from the 920. Packer fans fall hard for their white guys. Favre, Rodgers, Kuhn, Jordy, Chimura, etc. And I kind of feel like Nikki Haley, because right now I've got to defend myself. I named my boat the Jordan Love boat. I got a favorite Packer quarterback who's a black guy.
Oh, come on. Reggie White? Man, he was awesome.
Well, Reggie White's my favorite Packer of all time. He was the greatest football player.
On and off the field, good human being.
Did you see Nikki Haley defended herself? I don't know if you knew, but CNN did a couple of GOP town halls last night with Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. They're apparently the only two viable alternatives to Trump at this point. And Nikki's had a little trouble with her allusions to the Civil War without acknowledging the slavery component.
Was,
that might have been
issues of governmental overreach.
Well, last night in defending herself, she effectively said, well, I grew up in South Carolina. Of course, we know about the Civil War and slavery. Hell, I have black friends. And let's just say a few people said, oh, no, she went there.
She did.
She went there because you may not be aware, but through history, a few racists have used the I've got a black friend, though, as some sort of a defense. And what Nikki Haley was doing, perhaps on the CNN, was giving those, let's just say overt racist, a little bit of cover fire, because we've all got a black friend. We've all got a favorite NFL player, right? So appreciate the texter helping me transition to that thought. 844-967-2789. Call, text, doesn't matter to us. It's Friday. Air your grievances here. Except
Mark,
I don't have the phones up, so you're going to have to help me out.
I got you. Mark, you're patient. Thank you. Happy Friday. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. For God's sake, Strom Thurmond had a black daughter, so he had some kind of.
So did Thomas Jefferson.
And it's just ridiculous that Nikki Haley's coming up with this, because the fact of the matter is that to a great many of the people down there in the South, she would not be considered white. I mean, that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. That it's sad that she just doesn't have the sense to actually do that, or doesn't have the courage to actually do it and call out. The Civil War is about slavery.
Yeah, Mark, I don't know who she's trying to appease with that. What was that political calculation in her head? What was the Civil War about? Slavery. I mean, that's it. That's the first thing that comes to mind. The very first thing that comes to mind in my mind. And if I were running for, some sort of political office, what would be the motivation for me to not say the first logical, accurate thing that would come to anyone's mind who was ever taught anything about anything in this country? Politics? What, she didn't want to offend the mega base? I'm not clear what she was thinking, but let's move on. 844-967-2789. Go ahead, Crute.
Andrew from Verona on the text line, WMDX text in. I started the show by saying there are two lines that I don't like to cross in this world. They're non-negotiable. And line number one is your participation in the January 6th insurrection. I cannot be your friend. Right, Ron Johnson? We're not friends any longer. And the second line, I would not cross Nickelback. But both you and Nate apparently have an affinity for the Nickelback. And the texter, Andrew, says, I was going to say the second red line would be traveling to Epstein's Island. But you're right. Nickelback is worse. Texters also pointed out that Wayne LaPierre left at the NRA today, stepping down.
Oh, no.
A conduit for Russian money to Republican candidates. And, of course, to give front to the manufacturers of arms and to sue against any sort of thoughtful or reasonable regulation, or let's just say background checks. No, none of that. Bye, Felicia. I hope he has a nice retirement, spends more time with family.
Oh, now that he's run the NRA into the ground, time to go. 844-967-2789. Wisco. Paul, you're up. Happy Friday, Paul. What do you got?
Hey, Paulie.
Hey, happy Friday to you, Devils. Yeah, first of all, I got to say, well said, Jack from Merrimack. That was pretty cool. A little thought went into that. As far as the Packers go, I'm an older gentleman here. Well, not too old, but old enough.
Not a gentleman, certainly, but please continue.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Crute. But Bart Starr is my all-time favorite. But that being said, Reggie White, he helped turn the Packers around, and you can't help but love him. J6, I think everything's been said about that today. It happened, and it's real. And if you want to believe a news network that told you right to your face that they lied about everything, and you still want to believe them, I don't think it can help them. And my grievance, I got a quick grievance, though, and that's the border. The GOP points out all the problems down at the border, but they don't want to do anything about it because, in my mind, it's the only thing they got to run on. Point out a problem, don't do anything about it, and that's what they're good at doing. So with that, thanks for taking my call. I love you guys, and have a great weekend.
Well, thank you,
Paul.
Wisco.
Appreciate it, man.
I hope he's got some cold spotted cows waiting for him.
Oh, yeah.
As every good Wisconsinite should on a Friday afternoon. Unless you've moved beyond drinking, but then you're a quitter. 844-967-2789. I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't go there. It's fine for you if you don't want to participate in
that means it's
our
more
state
for
sport
me.
here.
Yeah, right. Ain't that the truth?
Any final thoughts for the day, Dom?
So what's next week? What's going on next week?
Next week, I'm going on the road, dude.
When you going? What days are you going to Iowa?
For the Love of Democracy tour, sponsored by our friend Chad at Chad's Design Build. Man, I'm hitting the road bright and early Wednesday morning, the 10th. I'll be going to Des Moines, Iowa. I'll hit the diner on Main Street, every other of my nooks and crannies there. And then I'll check in at the Marriott, and then I'll probably go over and see if they've given me credentials for the spin room, which I doubt they will. I do know the back area where you can actually catch the candidates between the debate forum and the spin room. So I might.
That's because you got kicked out that one time, right?
Yeah, that one other time when the DNC hosted. And then I'm going back to the Marriott Hotel Bar in downtown Des Moines. I'm dropping my credit card. I'm sitting third base, and I'm going to get Newt Gingrich hammer drunk that night and see what sort of loose lips there are amongst the GOP contingent. And then I'll be back doing this fine show with you, depending on whether or not Trump lets me in on Thursday.
All right, we'll see. We'll see.
But I'm not going tomorrow. If I don't have credentials, I'm not going to Iowa tomorrow. Sorry, Dom. Sorry, people. Stick around. Maggie Dawn is next. And then outside the Pizza Box with our buddy, Pizza Box Mike.